Hey, welcome back to Barefoot Bible. I'm David Wright. I served as pastor and Bible teacher for over 40 years, and since needing to retire, I now serve online through Barefoot Bible on most social media platforms. It's a privilege. Let's take a few minutes and join me for Pre-Armageddon Moves and Counter Moves. Explains some important prophecies from Revelation chapter 16. We're wrapping that up today. And there's the title screen once again. Both sides, Jesus and his angelic forces versus Satan and his forces of evil, are making moves and counter moves in this section under these prophecies. Verse 16 together, and he gathered them together in a place called, and you see it in the background there, in the Hebrew tongue, Armageddon. Now, you may not recognize that because it's just the remnants of what used to be built there. But Armageddon refers to Mount Megiddo and the surrounding Jezreel Valley. It's up in northern Israel. Megiddo was conquered by Canaan. It was conquered in the land of Canaan by Joshua and then fortified by King Solomon. And it eventually became where good King Josiah died in battle against Pharaoh Necho in 609 BC. So it's mentioned several times throughout the Bible. Let's move on to verse 17. And the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne, so you have an idea of who's speaking, saying, "It is done." You know, Jesus Christ cried out, didn't he, from the cross? "It is finished." John 19. In verse 17 here in Revelation 16, Jesus also prophesied, saying, "It is done." What he's referring to is God completes or will complete the final outpouring of wrath in this judgment. We've arrived at the repetition of a prophecy from Joel 1:15 that the day of the Lord is at hand. Joel referred to that. Jesus is referring to the same time frame, the end of the outpouring of God's wrath, leading right up to that battle between Jesus and Satan. Nothing else needs to occur now before the resurrected King of Kings is sent back to bring an end to the Antichrist's evil reign. So this is a prophecy of that time frame. And we continue in verse 18 and 19. And we'll do this over two screens for you. And there were voices and thunders and lightnings. Now, throughout Revelation, that phrase is repeated each time it's connected with God's wrath being outpoured. And there was a great earthquake, one of several in Revelation. This is a little different, such as was not since men were upon the earth. So it's historically great. So mighty an earthquake and so great. And the great city, and we'll learn what he's referring to in a moment, was divided into three parts. So it got split. And the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon, we'll explain what that refers to, came in remembrance before God to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. All right, let's explain a couple of those things, because there's some terms John used that may have been understood back in the first century, but have lost that meaning today. John called Jerusalem the great city. It's the same title he gave to Jerusalem back in Revelation 11 and verse 8. In God's final word, author Ray Stedman wrote, Jerusalem is split into three parts by the derangement of the earth. There's a parallel description of the event in Revelation, Zechariah 14, where the prophet Zechariah tells us the Mount of Olives will be split in half, part moving to the north, part moving to the south, creating a great valley between. Good quote from Brother Stedman. Now, Great Babylon refers, in verse 19, refers to what eventually becomes the Antichrist capital city. It may not be located at the previous location of Babylon, which was an empire at one point. This is the capital city, but it may be near that area. The prophecy of Babylon's fall is coming up in chapter 18, and so we'll learn more about it and the details of its rise and fall coming up. Let's move on to verse 20. And now remember that there's an earthquake here that's massive, one that's greater than any other earthquake since the beginning of time. And in light of that, verse 20 says, and every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. So this is a continuation of the results of that massive earthquake. Jerusalem is split into three pieces, and islands and mountains in the world be flattened. Remember now, if you get a little too discouraged because of the beauty of those places, the islands, the mountains, the city of Jerusalem, keep in mind, Revelation 21, John is shown a new heaven and a new earth. Now this is after the final judgment occurs and God's wrapped up the sheep and the goats, Jesus called it, referring to believers and unbelievers. They have different destinies by choice, by their own choice. So John speaks of a new heaven and a new earth. So we shouldn't be too discouraged about the kind of destruction we're reading about here that's to come. I think it won't really affect us, those of us alive today, believing in Jesus. And the New Testament in 1 Thessalonians 4 paints a picture of a rapture occurring before all these tribulation events get started. God has different plans for what he calls the church, which still exists today. Let's move on to verse 21 as well. Oh, I already mentioned Revelation 21 and the new heaven and new earth. We'll be closing in on that chapter shortly, and you'll love the description he gives us there about what the future holds. Now, verse 21 describes, and there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven, every stone and the weight of a talent. Men blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail, for the plague thereof was exceeding great. We've heard of hail as big as softballs. The judgment of this plague of hail is somewhat like the plague of Egypt back in Moses' day, where hail fell and destroyed flocks and herds, Exodus chapter 9. But what John's describing is hail the weight of a talent. You may not have an idea what it's weighed, because that's not a measure that we use here. Perhaps it's used in other countries where you might live. But it's the weight of about 100 pounds, or the equivalent of that looks more like a monster truck, but a semi-truck tire falling from the sky to hit whatever it lands on. And chronologically, the next event following this hail is going to be the second coming of Christ. And we won't read about that till chapter 19. So the next couple chapters, verses and chapters, fill in important details that were not covered early on about the Antichrist and his kingdom, the rise and fall. May I encourage you not to overlook next Thursday's video presentation. I'm calling it New Babylon's Evil Queen. We're beginning Revelation chapter 17. And it prophesies the rise and fall of his empire, the Antichrist empire. She's part of that evil empire. You won't want to miss any of these coming presentations. They'll help you have a much more clear concept of who the Antichrist is and what he will be. So I'm pleading you to come back, tune in just a week. Now, before you close this video, I want to encourage you to follow the red arrow and look down below the video. And there you should find links that are part of the details that I printed below the video for you. And several of them are links. And there's links to order your own personal copy of Revelation or of Daniel, The Secrets Revealed, and also my upcoming newest release, Judges, The Ripple Effect of Sinful Choices. Some folks describe it as the judge's cycle. Um, I think it's actually more complicated than that, so I chose the ripple effect because it kind of builds. Nonetheless, I want to encourage you to, if you haven't already subscribed, to consider subscribing to Barefoot Bible. It will make it to, the system will then, YouTube will then notify you of upcoming videos so you don't miss one that's new. Consider taking a brief moment to like, share, and subscribe to Barefoot Bible. We're also on many other platforms. You and your friends are the reason Barefoot Bible is online today. So thank you for tuning in. May God bless you abundantly as you continue this study of the last book of the Bible. And I hope you are encouraged about the positive future that God is laying out for people who follow his son, Jesus Christ. Hang on to your faith and keep following him and studying his word. God bless.